So, welcome everybody. This is the speaker roundtable for the Brew Your Book Summit held on National Coffee Day, of course. And yes, I do have to say that this was not an accident. Like, I actually planned the whole summit so that we would have this event on National Coffee Day. I'm your host and moderator today, Kim Galloway, and I am joined by some absolutely wonderful speakers today. So what we will do is we're going to go ahead and give everybody a 2-minute introduction. So you can talk about what you do, just give your little intro, and we're just going to get started here. I'll run time. We'll start off with Christopher. And go.
All right. My name is Christopher Maselli, and my wife and I own writingmomentum.com. She's also a full-time freelance writer. I've been one for about 30 years now, and we do all sorts of writing over that time. So my favorite kind of writing is probably writing for middle graders. I've written several series of novels for middle graders, but in order to make ends meet, what I found is that doing marketing writing, doing a lot of ghostwriting. We do a lot of ghostwriting. It really helps pay the bills, and that's a lot of fun. We write mostly for nonprofits, and that's kind of our specialty. And we do direct mail and books and mini books and articles and all that sort of thing. And then we have our own online membership at writingmomentum.com. We do live here in Arizona, which is real close to where you said you were here before, Kim, right? So,
Yes, I was in Prescott.
oh, well, that's where we are. We're in Prescott. So
Yeah.
we moved here about 7 years ago now. Um, uh, One of the joys of being a writer is we were able to. I was working for an agency doing marketing writing, and our kids were old enough. We thought, you know what? Let's get an RV and travel a bit with them, and so we did that. And on the way, we happened to pass through Prescott, and we just loved the area. It's a lot less traffic than Dallas Fort Worth, where we lived for 20 years, and we are very happy to have been able to slow things down a little bit with that. But that's a little bit about me.
Well, Christopher, I'm so glad that you were here. He slid in right at the last minute, like everything was closed down, and he's like, "Can I get in?" And I was like,
It's true.
"Can you be ready in like 2 days?" And he had all his stuff to me within like an hour. It was so cool. So I'm so glad you're here, Christopher. That was awesome.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let me go dismiss. Let's hear from Philip.
Okay, is my audio okay?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. I'll try to get through this quickly. I'm kind of losing my voice, bad timing. But so I am Philip Duncan. It's funny because I didn't know Kim prior to this. I had somebody send me this event. I checked it out and it looked really awesome. So I decided to jump in. What I typically do with authors is I work on email marketing with them. So I'm teaching them how to build email lists, how to sell books, how to get reviews, how to basically kind of treat your email list like a community. That's kind of been my sole focus for a couple of years. I always love doing summits. I've been more picky about different summits that I choose to be on. And I sent Kim this email. I think this is one of the best summits I've been on in a long time, especially the way she ran it and kept people updated. Because I've hosted a few summits in the past, and this was up there with some of the best, and it was a blast. I loved being updated all the time, seeing all the people coming in. The pages look great. It looks like we got a great host of, panelists here and stuff like that. And there was a lot of people on there. So that's really, there's not much to say. I live in the east or southeast, by the way, Knoxville, Tennessee. So if I sound Southern, which I may not, but that's where that would be coming from. So
Well, Philip, thank you again for joining us. And one of the cool things about the summit was I was able to go outside of like your known little bubble in the online space, right? And so I had some people that I had hunted, some people that I knew who they were and what they did. And Philip was not among them. And what was really super awesome was how many of his subscribers he was able to bring to our event. So if you are at all interested in how to effectively use your email list, this is the guy you really want to learn from. So I'm so glad you're here. All right, Miranda, how about let's hear from you?
Sure. Is my audio good?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so I'm a freelance fiction editor, and most people who know me through the Rev Pit online revision contest, which is going to be doing its 10th year next year. It's an online contest where authors can enter and possibly win a full developmental edit from one of our participating editors. We usually have, between 12 and up to 20 editors participating, and each one of them will pick a winner and give them a full manuscript developmental editor. I'm also an author of nonfiction books about writing, including this one, which is the 6-step revision process. This is in my Concise Fiction Academy series of writing craft books and classes, where I combine my experience as a freelance editor with my day job, where I'm a corporate attorney. So I give executive summaries of complex writing topics with overviews, recommendations, and sources for more information, all with a sense of humor. I live in Minnesota with my husband and teen boys and 2 bossy little dogs.
I love the way you said teen boys and bossy little dogs. Well, and Miranda's another one that I don't think we had been connected prior to this event. So it was so great having such different voices. And thank you so much for like holding up your book there. When everybody was looking at their gifts, I made sure to put links to all of my authors' books. And because I'm kind of snazzy this way, they're all Amazon affiliate links. And yes, it's disclosed in teeny weeny print at the bottom of my page. But the reason why I wanted to do that was because I wanted to track to see how many of the participants to the summit were then dashing off and getting y'all's books. And I have to say, you all sold lots of copies. Lots of copies, considering it was kind of buried. I didn't really push it. I was kind of doing it as like an extra bonus to my speakers to just kind of see like, why not? Why not share some of those books that we've worked so hard on? And we sold copies. It was super, super great. So Miranda, I'm so glad you're here. And let's take that over to Anne now.
Hey, I'm Anne Sheybani, and apparently I'm the only one representing New England. So I'm up in New Hampshire. I spent 10 years in Ireland, and about 2 years ago, my husband and I moved back to the States. So we've been able to run a publishing house called Summit Press Publishers, and we specialize in narrative and prescriptive nonfiction. And the people we serve best are those folks, the speakers and the coaches and the service professionals and the consultants who are looking to set themselves apart from the herd. And they're looking for a highly polished, expert positioning book that impacts lives. So they come to us. That's our sweet spot. So I came to the table years ago running a creative writing local workshop, and that moved from memoir and novels into, hey, my husband was working for Tony Robbins. Can you help our people write a bucket list book? And suddenly I was helping people write all sorts of books, particularly that prescriptive nonfiction book. And that morphed into developmental editing and book doctoring and ghostwriting. And we're all about positioning people and getting people to, just like Philip and his email list, how do we get our readers to signal that they have read our book? How do we stay in communication with those readers so that we can continue to love on them and to make offers to them along the way?
I'm so glad that you're here, Anne. And Anne was absolutely one of the people that I had hunted. It wasn't so much that we actually knew each other so much as we were in a Facebook group together. We became Facebook friends, like just their acquaintances. And I knew that she was book coach. And so I was like, I'm just going to headhunt her onto this summit. And I was so, so glad when she said yes. And it's been such a pleasure having you as part of this event.
Thanks, Kim.
And moving on to Holly.
Hey there, I'm Holly Doherty with Rediscover Radiance. I'm an author, speaker, copy editor. I wear all the hats. Mom to two special needs kiddos that we homeschool, and so really busy. And in the meantime, I have managed to write and publish 9 books. I just did my memoir, and I'm working on my debut novel right now. And Kim, I have to tell you, I have 10,000 words as of last night.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah. So I help women to live confident and authentic lives that are aligned with their core values and not who they think they're supposed to be and what they think they're supposed to do, but what their sole purpose and calling is.
And Holly and I go way back. She is actually one of my absolute best friends. So I won't say I so much as headhunted her as said, "You're doing this with me, right?" And a large part of that is because she's the copy editor that I hire for all of my stuff and all of my client books. And when we relaunched her memoir, was that last year or the year before?
Last year.
Okay. I have 4 little kids, and my oldest is 8, and my youngest turns 1 next month. So I've got mom brain. It was just really a no-brainer to have her voice on this stage as someone who mostly doesn't work in the helping author industry, and someone who really works with fabulous women, but also who has such a big message to share. So thank you so much for making me have you do this, Holly. So, okay, and then we have Megan.
Hi, happy to pull in with this lineup. It's so fun to get to know these other folks who are here. And thanks, Kim. I'm like the women's empowerment coach turned debut novelist this summer. My book, It's Always Been Me, came out in June. It's like it was birthing a baby. I don't have children in this lifetime, so this was proud mama moment. And it was inspired by my own personal experiences of losing myself in my marriage and the discovery of homecoming. And writing this book was a journey of coming home to myself. And it took off and on over 10 years. And and fun fact, at one point, I actually had a conversation with Kim because I was like, I have all of these massive, messy scenes. I don't know. I don't have any training in how to be a novelist. I don't know what to do with this. Like, I'm using my superpowers with words as a marketing coach and a copywriter and like women's empowerment coach help. And I thought I would have her ghostwrite my book. And Kim, I am so grateful that you turned around and you were like, this is your book to write. Because it really absolutely was. And so I'm so glad that was the choose your own adventure that I went on. And I'm happy to be here today. Love what you're doing with this summit. And yeah, that's all I'll share for now.
Oh, thanks so much, Megan. And me too. You know, I think that having you write Sabina's story was exactly what the world needed. Sabina is her main character, by the way.
Yeah.
And you know, when Megan and I first met, that was very much when my business was new. And if it was anything related to writing, my answer was like, sure, I can help you. And in the back, I was going, oh gosh, can I really pull this one off? And this was one of those ones where I went, no, I'm not doing this. I am not going to ghostwrite this. You need to do this. And I am so proud of you with this debut novel, and you did your big book tour. And so, yeah, she was definitely headhunted because I wanted to have that voice on the summit of somebody who has worked so hard to bring the book into the world, especially once you hit that decade mark. So as a writing coach, here's just a little fun factoid. And other writing coaches, when we open the stage up again, I want to hear if this is the truth for you. When you get a client who's worked on their book for 2 to 3 years, we can coach them into writing their book. Once they hit that decade mark, I have had 0 success getting them to invest in coaching and then do the thing should they invest. Because the writer label has been so comfortable for so long that they don't know who they would be when they hang on the author label. And then they go from somebody who's writing a book to somebody who has written a book. And so, Megan, I just really have to hand it to you that you worked on it for so long and you were able to make that transition from someone who's writing to someone who published. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and then wrapping us up, we have Christiana.
Thank you so much, first of all, for the beautiful pronunciation of my name. That is not an easy one.
You put it down in there, so yay.
I know. It's for all the writers that are also the readers. I love it. Yeah, my name is Christiane, and I help creatives, so writers, authors, speakers pitch themselves. And my books are called How to Master Your Goals and Discover Your Superpower. Just completed a TEDx talk. So now I'm also helping those authors becoming TEDx speakers and pitch themselves not only in their books, but also on the big stages. Thank you for having me here.
I am so glad that you're here, and I'm so glad that we're connected. Like I said, I worked really hard on this summit where it wasn't just the people that I knew. Because the problem is we all end up in our little silos. And then when we're inviting all of the wonderful people who are joining us from our individual networks and our individual email lists, it's like, oh, but I've already heard from that person. I know who that person is. And what I think was so cool about this summit was there probably wasn't a lot of crossover. That was intentional, and I worked really, really hard to do that. So I'm so glad that you are here. So let's dive in. We are going to have this be for our published author panelists. I don't think I have any of you guys who aren't published authors. Running back in my mind here. My first question that I wanted to ask you is, as an author, what keeps you motivated? So just who wants to start? Raise your hand, probably in real life, because Anne, what keeps you motivated as an author?
I think, as a creative, I make sense of the world by writing. And, I'm always trying to understand myself. The better I understand myself, the better I understand the people that I work with, the better I understand people that are surrounding me. So it's that clarity only comes at the page. I'm not somebody who stands up and can spew, incessantly. And I'm not a clear speaker. I'm a very clear writer. And that helps me with just every aspect of my life. So it's a pattern, it's a habit, it's a way of life. And I don't understand any other way, but that's what does it for me.
No, I love that. I totally understand. Okay, who wants to follow up with that? Holly.
Yeah, it's really about keeping my why front and center. So when I was doing my nonfiction books, and especially my memoir, my why was my big message and my big purpose in the world. And for the novel, it's a little bit of dream fulfillment. It's a little bit of proving that I can do it. I've always been a fiction writer my whole life until I became an adult and went into nonfiction. But just keeping that why, like this is a commitment that I'm making to myself, and really expressing myself through writing is fun. It's a very fun creative outlet that, lets me step away from the crazy world and just immerse myself in a story and expression in that fun.
I love that. And, that's really something that I've had to struggle with as a writer, as an author. It's fun. And I grew up in well, if it's fun, you have to do it last. So I love that you're like, it's fun. And that's why I get to do it. Awesome. Anybody else want to pop in on this one? Megan and then Miranda.
So for me, what motivates me is the fun, the feeling that I am co-creating with the big magic that is wanting a story to be shared through me, a deep sense of this is what I'm here for. I'm here to share stories wrapped up in, fun beach read with depth that actually delivers a potent message to really wake up more women, help them claim their power. So it's like all these things. And it's also a way that I show up for myself. You know, it's that breaking free of those old patterns of putting other people's priorities above my own. And it's owning, this is what I'm here for. So this is what I'm showing up for. So it's that personal, it's who I'm here to become. And that's what excites me to keep showing up to the writing.
I love that.
Fun question.
And you're going to be working on a sequel to.
I just started this morning in the next real new way, knowing we were gathering together today. I was like, I've got to do it. I've got all these notes. And it was starting to like immerse myself in the notes and say, okay, Sabina, you and me every morning for a couple hours for the next 21 days to just like kickstart this book too. Yeah.
Congratulations. That's so great. Okay, Miranda.
Yes. So what keeps me motivated to work on books on writing craft is that I'm able to reach more people than I can on doing one-on-one edits, because I do book coaching and I do developmental editing. But I mean, that's a level of commitment, including financial commitment, that not all writers can have. But if you have an ebook that's available for, $5, $6, a lot more people can reach that. And then online classes is also a lot more affordable than what it would cost to work on a full developmental edit. And so it's reaching more people and being able to help them along their writing journey, and being there for people where they're at.
And I'm so glad that you said that being able to reach more people, reach them where they're at, being along with that journey, isn't that one of the most magical parts about books, just kind of in general, that we get to reach people all the time and it lives outside of and beyond us. And I know that since a lot of us are online marketers and we've got courses and this, that, and the other thing, there's kind of that thing with our courses. But to me, when you have a book that is like a physical thing out there in the world, and that can go out and reach people and have those journeys of its own, getting left on the bus, on a park bench, in a free little library, in a used bookstore. That is always so exciting to me, where, we track our sales. Let's not pretend that we don't, right? But the thing that I love is knowing that when a library is carrying one of my books, or that one of my books ends up into a used bookstore, it still is alive and I can't track it anymore. It both excites and breaks my marketer brain. Because, data, we like data. So, yeah. So, Christiane, would you like to wrap us up on this one?
I think for me, it is really connecting with the readers. And on some days, you might not be super motivated, but then asking the readers, whether that's on social media, on your email, or even in person, is like, what is it really that you liked? And what is it really that you need? And hearing that from them and then going back and addressing those needs, I think that's really powerful, because you're feeling you're actually helping somebody. And by not writing, I always say you're stealing, because you're depriving them of the knowledge what your book will deliver to them.
I love that. That's so powerful. One of the things that I always say from my stages is basically exactly what you said in just Kim speak. This, who are you meant to help? And I'm always really upfront every time I'm doing like a free webinar or a free class or something. I always say 100% of the authors who want to work with me say something like, I want to help people. And if my book touches just one life, then it will be successful. And again, when my business was new and I had a few of those who weren't ringing that bell, we were not a good fit. They were lousy clients and I wasn't their coach. But Christiana, you said something else with that the way I speak it is, who are you hurting by not writing your book, by not sharing your message, by not getting yourself out there? And I think that this is just absolutely so powerful. Okay, then we're going to wrap this up with, of course, we have somebody who's different. So Christopher, talk more about deadlines. Because I love it that you're motivated by deadlines.
You're going to call me in on it, huh? Yeah, no, all these answers were so beautiful. And my mind first went just on the very practical sense. I thought, well, one, so I don't have to work in a corporate office. I did that for a while and I'm like, oh, I like working at home. But yeah, deadlines, I have found deadlines to be kind of like getting a little bit of a superpower when I have them, because nothing motivates me to get something done like having a deadline. And every once in a while I'll get a job where they don't have a deadline, right? They just say, oh, just have it done, whenever you get it done. And I push back and say, no, please give me a deadline. When do you need this done? Because I know then it's going to show up on my to-do list. It's going to show up on my calendar, and I'll be able to get that thing done. And that's what motivates me.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I'm going to address that in just a second. But I'm going to walk right in to this wonderful opening that you gave me, Christopher, and remind everybody of their deadline to join me for Brew Your Book 3-day virtual event. Stop percolating on your message and finally write your book. You can register at brewyourbook.com. So the summit was brewyourbooksummit.com. This is Brew Your Book. It's a completely different event. But the reason you need to do this ahead of a deadline of September 30th is to get a gift box, because I like to send out really fabulous goodies. Okay, thank you for setting me up so perfectly for that, Christopher. Couldn't have he wasn't a plant, I promise. But I want to address this because I find this to be so fascinating. There are so many times when we as authors, as creatives, and those of us who have worked with clients, either ghosting or writing marketing copy, have love-hate relationships with deadlines. On one side, yeah, it's really motivating. I gotta get this done. And on the other side, whoa, my life is a lot of chaos, right? Like who can relate with that deadlines kind of seem like a good idea until you miss one, right? Yeah. And I love what you said, Christopher, about how you do this so you don't have to go back to your corporate job. I spent 11 seasons working in my dad's tax office. He had the largest tax practice in all of Chino Valley, which was a little town just north of Prescott. Excuse me. And I actually had to give him a year notice so he could find my replacement, and I had a whole year to train her because of all the things that I did. And it was very much, when my business was brand new, it was what I will do whatever it takes not to have to go back to the tax office. So I can definitely resonate with your nope, not doing that again. So, okay, now we're going to switch hats. We're going to switch hats just a little bit from our author hat to our reader hat. And when you are reading a book, whether that's fiction or nonfiction, as a reader, what keeps you engaged? What keeps you turning pages? Go for it, Anne.
So I'm all about personal story. A big love of mine is that personal narrative that runs as a through line through whatever book you have, be it a how-to, be it some sort of framework book, self-help, any of that. The stuff that has me grounded and landed, that makes me want to know the author, to make me want to know what they're up to in the world, how I can connect with them, how I'm like them, how I'm dislike them, is the be all to end all. Like anytime I'm reading something, no matter how useful the information is, if I can't get a feel for the person behind it, it's dead dull for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's closed. And I would say probably the last book that I read that I absolutely loved was Lori Gottlieb's Maybe You Should Talk to Someone. I don't know if anybody's read that. It's primarily memoir. And I have never read anything that was a better advertisement to seek therapy. So when I talk to therapists who are writing a book, I tell them, just read Lori Gottlieb's book, and what we can borrow from that would be hands down the best way of framing a book that I could think of. But I need story, personal story.
And I love that you said that, because I'm with you. And a lot of what I teach is all about storytelling, a framework of how I coach clients. And it's so interesting because a million years ago, I had this client and I called him the boring guy. He was writing a book about authenticity, and it was fascinating. It was the most unique look at authenticity, living an authentic life that I had ever seen. But it had no stories, and he refused to put in any of himself. And he just wouldn't. He just wouldn't. And I said, cool, it's only good while you're reading it. And he was just shocked. And I'm sure that you can understand this, Anne, but it was like the second I put it down, it's like it fell out of my brain. I could not, it was fascinating while I was reading it, but I couldn't apply it to my life because there was no storytelling, and I couldn't remember it past our coaching sessions. And I don't think he ever ended up finishing it because he couldn't put himself on the page. So yeah, that connection is absolutely what we have to have. Who else? As a reader, what keeps you engaged? Miranda.
Your discussion just reminded me of Lisa Crone's book, Story or Die. And so if anybody else has read Story or Die, it's pretty much that it's the anecdotes, it's the personal stories that make the lesson, whether it's nonfiction or even in fiction. It's just like if there isn't a person going through a thing, and she gives all kinds of examples in that, but it really is that. Because before you'd gotten to that, I had written down, well, I work with fiction and not nonfiction, but it's the connection to the main character in their pursuit of their goal, and when you really care about them and you care about the stakes and stuff like that. But it's, whether it's fiction, whether it's a novel or whether it's nonfiction, it's just like there has to be a person that you care about, and then I'm invested, and then I'll remember it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, Anne, could you do me a favor? Pop into chat the name of the book that you were just talking about. And real briefly, panelists, if you could grab the link to your free gift, the one that you were giving in the summit, and just stick that down into chat if you want to, so we can just gather in just a few more people. So anybody else want to talk about, as a reader, what keeps you engaged? What keeps you turning pages? Philip, you're over there looking pensive. How's your voice?
Sorry, I was looking for my link. I'll answer the question now that you've got me off mute. So I like to read books kind of the way I write books. I've written 3, I've got 2 published. I write fiction. They're like fast-paced military type books, but I always try to write them the way I like to read stories. So, something's always happening. I lose focus really quick if I'm reading a book that's like 500 pages and I finish it and I'm like, that book could have been 300 pages and nothing would have been lost, but they just fluffed the whole thing up to get more pages. But then I don't know who just said it about like the personal stories. Maybe a couple people said it, but regardless of fiction or nonfiction, you can tie that into fiction. So like when I'm writing characters or story, I actually pull things out of my life that have happened, good and bad, and I put them into characters because it's like it makes it feel real. And since it is fiction, people need to feel connected to these characters. And that's what I want to feel when I'm reading. I want to feel like I'm like in the book, like it's a movie and I'm like walking alongside with them. And those are the kind of books that I can't put down. But any kind of fluff, and I get lost and I'll just put the book down and usually never pick it back up.
I see all of us nodding on that one. That connection, no fluff. And I think that as a writing coach, sometimes that is one of the hardest things to help our clients with. And it definitely slips down into the, okay, and now I'm going to put on an editor hat and we're going to start chopping things out because we're getting fluffy. We're getting fluffy. And I wasn't sure when I created my questions here. I just wasn't sure where the direction would be going with some of these questions. And I'm absolutely loving these answers. So does anybody else want to address, as a reader, what really keeps you engaged and turning those pages? Christiane.
Yeah, so all of my books are actually addressing different learning styles. And that just comes from experience because I'm a professor and a lot of my students tell me I have I struggle with ADHD. I have trouble concentrating. It's really, I can't read 30 pages at a time. And so I want to make sure to keep them engaged because time is the most precious resource. So I love the fact that some of you say there's no fluff. I really want to address different learning styles by including, I have puzzles in there, I have podcasts in there. I even have pages where they can doodle. So some people really focus when they do something with their hands while they're reading. And I think that's so important that it's not always just the one directional reading and digestion, but it's also the reading could go with something else to support the knowledge, right? So it's nearly like when you say brewing doesn't always happen. We don't have to make coffee always the same way. You can make it a lot of different ways. And that's how I look at reading as well. We can read in a lot of different ways. And I think that's really important to honor and appreciate differences with regard to learning styles.
And I love that. I absolutely love that. And I love the idea of thinking about how people learn, especially those learning styles that don't get much play. I'm looking at you, kinetic learners. In my office, this is part of a detached garage. And so over here, I have windows, and on the immediate opposite side, I have what my husband calls my she shop, AKA it's like mom's tools. And he's walking by and you're saying these different learning types. And I was like, oh yeah, like my always in motion helicopter flying husband. Absolutely. And earlier in the chat, somebody had said, oh, you should totally listen to whatever book we were talking about as an audiobook. And I absolutely love it that somebody brought that up, because the thing that I find so exciting about audiobooks is that it opens up books to people who don't like to read, who can't, who don't have the time. And that I think is just so absolutely fantastic. I am not a current audiobook person because there's too much auditory chaos going on in my life. Remember, 4 little tiny loud humans. But I have friends who are always in their car and always on the move, and audiobooks was how they were able to reconnect with their love of reading. And I just find that to be so powerful. Yeah, love audiobooks and podcasts. And so Christiana says she loves audiobooks. Miranda says love audiobooks. See, I think that's so great. I had a season in my life when I was in high school and I was doing these giant artworks, and I always had an audiobook going on in the back. And you guys are totally, Holly says, and they can block out the noise and chaos. Holly and I have regular phone conversations, and we'll have 2 sentences and then I yell at a kid, and then 2 sentences. Of course you can have a popsicle, 2 sentences, put that down. So, and I love that you guys mentioned audiobooks, because we will be finishing up the playroom probably in the next week or 2. And then I get to go and do tape and texture on the drywall, prime and paint. I might have to go check out some audiobooks and pop those on. I usually listen to business trainings, but maybe I'll do something different. So great. So now I want to hear about, what is your writing practice? What does your writing practice look like? And the way I want to couch this is a little bit of, and my life needs this type of practice because. So when Megan's like, I'm spending 2 hours a day with my protagonist for the next 21 days, I'm going, what? So I want to know about your writing practice, and I want to know either how you're setting up your life to support that, or why this works so well in your life. I want to give everybody who's listening ideas for how they can get more writing done in the face of different types of schedules, little kids, etc. Okay, who wants to go first on this one?
I feel I must.
Yes, please.
Okay, so first of all, I do not have kids, let alone 4 kids all under a young age. So that creates for a very different environment for me. So acknowledging that. For me, here's what I look at. My most creative, optimal, juicy time to sit down to the page is the morning, right after shortly after I get up, after I've stretched, that kind of thing, and I'm drinking my first cup of coffee. So for me, it's looking at time of day when my most optimal writing time is. And then I love to bring in I love to make it a really hedonistic, pleasurable experience. So there's, coffee with my cacao in it. There's a soft, cozy blanket. This morning I had the two cats with me. Sometimes there's a candle, sometimes there's incense. So there's this whole physical comfort, cozy, yummy, blissful thing. And I put it on my calendar because it's letting me know and the universe know I'm really showing up at these times. And I don't book any of my coaching calls until usually noon, sometimes 10 a.m. So I've started waking up earlier. And so one of the things that I do, and this could be helpful for those of you tuning into this conversation, looking at writing your own books, is, and this is what I covered in my video that was part of the summit, is looking at what do we need to say yes to and no to actually show up to writing the book. So just quick example for me is say no to staying up late at night, binge watching Netflix, so that I can say yes to waking up early. I've started to set the alarm earlier and earlier, like 6 a.m. 5:30 is in my near future, so that I'm actually setting myself up for success. And say no to the doubt when the doubt is like, you did it once. Do you really think you can do it again? And it's like working with the doubt and being like, I get that there's that doubt there. And guess what? I'm still going to show up and I'm going to remind myself, shitty first draft. Let it just be fun and messy the first time. So it's those practices of working with the inner game, the outer game, putting on the calendar that is my writing practice. And I'm all about keyboard and my laptop. Like, I've got to have a keyboard that moves faster for me than pen to the page. And music. I didn't mention that. Handpan music is my latest, most chill, taps me into a flow.
Okay.
So there you have it. That's my practice.
Love it. Like that's the whole experience right there.
It has to be, because it has to be pleasurable. I have to say this one other thing. You mentioned earlier about like all the hard work. Anytime anyone has said to me, oh, you've worked so hard and you've been so persistent, I have to say, not really. I don't believe in hard work. I believe in showing up. It's not that it's easy, but it's devotion. It's not discipline. It's, I love this and I am passionate about it. And that's what fuels me to keep showing up each morning, because it's fun, it's pleasurable, and it's devotional.
Oh, that's really powerful.
Okay, just had to off my soapbox, had to rant about that. It's really important though. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really wonderful. That's really wonderful. Okay, who else? What does your writing, and then Holly, what does your writing practice look like?
So I don't have little kids anymore. They're long grown, they're out of the house. And I have to be in a mausoleum because the idea of sitting at a coffee shop with people talking around me would just drive me absolutely mad. So super introverted, super focused. And I'm going to kind of bounce off of Chris and Megan, where Chris talks about deadlines. Absolutely, without a deadline, I don't do my own writing. And with Megan and her block time. So where I get busy is the number of book projects I have going at any given time. I might have 6 content development or ghosting projects, which means I'm actively engaged in some level of writing of 6 different books. And I might have 2 books in the publishing process where I'm leading project management and managing a team. So I'm incredibly busy. And like that cobbler who owns no shoes, my writing will usually come last, because if it means I get to pay my team and I get to, put money in the bank, I'm always going to choose that over my own writing. Is that right? Probably not. Is it the reality of my business and my existence? Yes. And when I get the guilt, like I am first and foremost a writer, and I know I need to be doing my own writing, and I know I need to be working on my own book project, I have to block out time. And sometimes I can squeeze in 6 hours on a weekend. Sometimes it'll be 6 months, and then I'll get a month-long reprieve and work on it. But I come last. Is that the right way to do it? No. But is it deadlines and is it block time? Absolutely.
Anne, I think a lot of us can really resonate with the "and I come last." Yeah. It was so funny because we had just started, and of course, my dad calls. And as you know, if you're here in the United States, we have the tax extension deadline is coming up. And what is the last tax return that my dad would always do? Mine and his, because it's that whole cobbler's kids have holes in their shoes thing. So I like how real you are with this. Yeah, I'll do it, but it gets shuffled into the corners. And when I make it a priority, it has to look like this. So thank you for just being so real with how that looks. So, okay. And then I said somebody was coming next. It was Holly, right? Yeah, go for it, Holly.
So, Megan, I want to say that your idea of devotion, I loved that. And that was my favorite part of your talk. Because that really is what motivates, to continue. And sometimes when it gets hard, you look at your devotion to the craft and your project. But compared to her, like really luxurious and luscious rituals around her writing, mine is going to seem totally chaotic and random, but it works for me, and I'll tell you why. So my brain doesn't function in the morning between like doctor's visits, therapies, school for the kids, all of the things, right? Mornings just don't work. So those are busy, or they're like me with my coffee, just, trying to face my day. I am a night owl, and so I will do most of my writing at night. But what I do is I take a notebook with me everywhere because I'm constantly waiting for something, picking up my kids. Yep. And I will write. And that helps me. Okay, when I go to type something for the first time into the computer, I have this idea that it's got to be perfect. That somehow, like, the internet gremlins are going to come and take my story and publish it without my permission. This crappy first draft, right? And so it's got to be perfect. The notebook allows me to ask questions. What happened next? Like, I just wrote over and over, like, so I'm writing a horror novel right now. How did this person die? How did it happen? And then I just went on, but my brain's percolating, right? My brain is working on it when I'm in the shower, when I'm driving my kids around, when I'm doing all the things that is life. And then I come back to it and I can write in my notebook, oh, this is how it happened, right? So it's like a combination writing and journal and research and all of the things in this notebook. And then I can sit down at the computer and go, okay, I've kind of written it out, whether it's showing, telling, whatever, it's summary, I've written it. And then I can put it into the computer. And, last night I was up till 2 a.m. because I was just, I get in the groove and everybody's sleeping and it's all finally quiet and still. And that's when my brain turns on. It always has. And so that's how I do it.
I love that. And I will sometimes wake up to these middle of the night texts from Holly as she's working on her debut novel here. And, and I don't read, like I told her, I said, I'm not reading this one because I worked extensively with her memoir, editing and the publishing the whole 9 yards, the launch. And I was like, I don't read horror. So I will be your biggest cheerleader and I'm not reading that one. But I love how we have these already, like these really different practices when it comes to writing our own stuff. And for years and years and years, I worked as a ghostwriter. I worked as a marketing copy writer. I worked as a book coach. I worked as an editor. Basically, every hat that you could wear that is related to books or writing in general, I've done it. And you said something that I wanted to circle back to because it is simply a professional question. It has nothing to do with any of this, but it's a professional question because I'm dying to know. What is your palate cleansing when you're working from one book to another? Like when I was working for marketing copy and all this ghostwriting, it was like, what is the mental equivalent of like sniffing a coffee bean, little coffee bean sticky? Like, how do you transition from one project to another? And then we'll come back to anybody else who wants to talk about their writing practice.
I'll come back to the question that everybody has is like, how can you write more than one book at one time? Like that's when I first started this, there's no way I could have imagined going from one book project to the next, because we know how deeply we go down the rabbit hole and how it's all consuming. And so with experience, making that shift has become less and less problematic, because I've got an outline. I know what chapter I'm on. I can remember information for a really long period of time. Like 4 years later, I can tell someone exactly what the structure of their book is and the key points that they took away, because that's how married I was to the project. And so, yeah, can I just shift from one thing to the other? No, I usually have an hour of busy work in between, or a couple of hours of busy work in between before I make that shift. Because it's like running a marathon. You run a marathon and then you want to lay on the couch for like 2 hours and then regroup and then sit down and think. So, I have to pace myself because it's hard mental work. So at the end of the evening, I am not known for being a lot of fun. At dinner parties, I'm in bed at 8:30 because I use my head a lot. So the transition is easier. It's an hour or two. It's a good chocolate brownie. A good chocolate brownie in between a big task, like a 4-hour task, chocolate brownie, another 4-hour task. I cannot recommend it highly enough.
I love it. Okay. That was like a total aside professional question. Yeah.
But Kim, I want to say one thing. Years ago, I remember we were in this Facebook group and I was writing about managing a ghostwriting project. And it was something I had never been in. Like you discussed, every time you take on a project, the first thought you have is, oh my God, how am I going to do this? How on earth am I going to do this? I'm going to be found out. I'm going to just totally, totally destroy this. I'm going to shame myself. And you were saying, like, you have to show up at the table like the leader. You can't be questioning yourself so much that they're picking up on your doubt and your fear. Like all of us, regardless of you, the writer writing it, you're going to doubt yourself. Well, guess what? Your ghostwriter is doubting themselves at the beginning too, every single time. And they've just learned that they're going to second guess themselves until they into the project and the project takes off and it's going to be fine. But we just know that that's part of the process, the second guessing ourselves. But you had said something about it, and I had developed a mantra. I had it hung by my desk, and it was "be the chicken," which was be the chicken, which meant to me is like be the leader, be the like the chicken in the barnyard, like you be the chicken man. And every time I would second guess myself, I'm like, just be the chicken. And that was you, Kim.
Awesome.
Be the chicken.
Oh, thank you.
Be the chicken, people. Be the chicken.
Be the chicken. Be the chicken. Okay, so we have a few more minutes of unknown length, because again, now that we're wrapping up to what time is it out there in the real world, and I honestly don't know. I just want to go around real quick, and I want you to just give me your one piece of advice to someone who is anywhere in the book writing journey. So I'm going to go backwards from how we did our introductions. I've got my little list here. So we're going to start with Christiane. What is your one piece of advice that you would like to leave us with?
I would say just keep it up. Consistency is key. Even if on some days you feel you actually didn't write a lot, just keep writing, because I think keeping the momentum going is really where the passion comes from, that you feel it's growing and it's going somewhere. So that's always what I tell all my clients, and they're always giving me a hard time and saying, let's go. And that's exactly what I say. Let's just do it, right?
Be the chicken. I love it. Okay, Megan.
Get support and recognize that the type of support will change as you change, as you move forward with the book. And that made such a difference for me, from writing with a writing group to going on a retreat to when it was time to work with a developmental editor. It's like, it's such a solo act, this writing thing. So having support along the way makes such a huge difference.
I love it. Get support. Absolutely. Okay. Holly.
The number one thing I would say is believe in yourself. Believe in your abilities, believe in your worth, that you are worth bringing this work out into the world. Believe in your ability to figure things out when there are things you don't know and when you get stuck. And, learn the craft. The more you practice it, the more you learn it and build your competence and your skill, the more confident you're going to be in it. And just keep going, because you're worth having this project finished. You're worth having this book out into the world.
I love it. You are definitely worth it. And
I'm going to say that you need to invest in yourself. In your idea, your book idea, because the people who, and I'm not just talking money, like if you need support, absolutely invest in support, right? It just saves a whole bunch of time and effort, but invest the effort in yourself, because when you invest in yourself, then your book gets out there and you get readership. And if you never invest in that book idea and run it to completion, you just you're always going to stay on the same line. You'll always be this person who could have. So invest in yourself.
I love that. And I love how you clarified that it's not just the money, it's the effort to invest in yourself. Miranda.
Yeah, I think this one, it could work for nonfiction, but I definitely use this with my fiction novel writers, is to look for the heart of your story. Because so many early writers just feel like they have to have 52 subplots and so many characters and stuff. And it's just, really concentrate on what's the heart of your story and spend your time and energy there. And the necessary subplots will emerge when you focus on that.
Oh, I love that. Look for the heart of the story. And yes, as somebody who only coaches nonfiction, I will say that 100% applies as well. Absolutely. Thank you. Perfect. Philip.
Okay, I'm going to answer this from a different perspective, because everybody else has given really great tips and feedback on the writing aspect and believing in yourself. So I'm going to answer it like a marketer. And I tell this to people I work with or on my email list and stuff. It comes from personal experience. Is authors think they have to have their book done, ready to publish before they start building an audience. But I tell authors kind of the opposite, because once it's done, you've put all that hard work in, time, effort, money. If you don't have anybody to say, tell about your book, then it's just going to kind of sit out there. So if you start early, one, it's going to keep you from having to full head down for, 6 months trying to figure it out. You can kind of piece it together as you go. But then once your book's done, hopefully you've got a few people in your world, on your email list, in a community that you can actually tell them about your book, and it makes life a lot easier. So,
no, I love that. No, that's awesome. I love that. And wrapping us up with Christopher.
All right, I'm going to go with accountability. If we want to lose weight or start exercising or something, we often find groups, right, that we can become accountable to. And this is something I've seen popping up a lot on the internet right now, because we can all have writers groups where we join with other writers. And even if it's nothing more that, hey, we're all going to join at a specified time, put ourselves on mute and work on our individual projects together, that is a great way to stay accountable and always have it on your calendar and get that writing done.
Awesome. I love that accountability. And I've seen the power of groups like that. I've run groups like that where it's like, yeah, we're just doing our own thing. We're just all doing it together. When I was in college, my best friend Jess and I would get together in my room and we'd study different things. But because we were both there, we drank copious amounts of tea and stuff got done. So to my awesome speakers, all of you panelists who are here, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been so enlightening. I'm going to get this up published on YouTube, and it'll be part of our Lifetime Access Pass. And I just wanted to say thank you again, everybody, for being here. So have a good one, and we will see it. Demi says, the need to build an email is my biggest takeaway from this conference. Thank you, Kim, and all the panelists. It's been a lot of learning for me. Looking forward to putting it to work. Awesome. Thank you so much. I can't tell you how wonderful all you were. to have you as part of this event, both all of our speakers and everybody who attended. We had over 1,300 people who registered, like well over 1,300. And I'm sure you email marketers can definitely understand there's like, I signed up 3 times, or I did this. So our final number is somewhere north of 1,330, but south of 1,430. So somewhere in there. And it's been amazing. All of the lives that we collectively touched was huge. And I just can't thank you guys enough. So go off, enjoy National Coffee Day, go have your next cuppa, and we will see you later. Thanks again. Bye, guys.